So welcome, Mike Dougherty. Did I say it right? I did say it right. I'm thinking dough, right? So
perfect way to do it.
There we go. So just to reiterate, I met Mike, I think it was a couple days ago when Natasha Young, who does her own Blab, fabulous group community called Crowdfund Monday, which is bringing together and serving the indie, not just film, but independent entertainment products. So even web series or music. Really, really neat, wonderful, wonderful community. And Mike was one of her guests. And so I hijacked him, I guess. And Mike, love to hear a little bit more for people that are not familiar with your background. Tell us a little bit about why you can talk about crowdfunding.
So I made this little movie called Brown Coats Redemption in 2009, and the way we did it, it was before Kickstarter, and Indiegogo had just launched, so nobody had heard about it. I honestly went to people and was like, do you have a credit card? Great. Do you want to be a producer? Excellent. And kind of, with the help of a co-creator, Stephen Fisher, and a bunch of people, kind of got the movie funded any way that we could. It was literally putting the tracks down as the train was getting constructed. Then, distributed that movie across the world through online and social media sales, as well as in person at convention. So a lot of it was still crowdfunding that way. So, because I'm a big proponent of pre-sales. Pre-sales really help gauge how much you should get. It'll allow you to also figure out how to pay for the thing that you need to do. So we crowdfunded the pre-sales. We, for 3 months before the thing even came out, we were just selling the crap out of it. And then raised about $117,000 for charity. So then when it came time, thank you. It came time to do the next movie. What I did is went to Kickstarter, and I watched Amanda Palmer do her crowdfunding. And that was huge. And I was just like, I don't need 1.2 million. I just need this much. I need what in filmmaking is a very, very small budget for a feature-length film. It was $250,000. And I learned very, very quickly that while I was great at raising $24,000, I didn't have the community invested in yet to do the goal that I needed to. Because that's the key for Amanda Palmer. She spent 10 to 15 years with herself and the Dresden Dials, building an email list, communicating with people, getting involved in social media very early. And I hadn't done that work, because what I did is I created a sci-fi movie, and then I wanted to jump over to horror. And I found out that only a small portion of that audience would actually jump, because as we talked about on Natasha's call, I did a really good job promoting a product, not so great of a job promoting the creator of the product.
Oh, wow. Okay, so stop right there.
Gotcha.
I love what you just said, that I did a great job promoting a product, because I think a lot of marketers, whether they're marketing a film or they're marketing themselves or a business, a lot of marketers do that exact same thing. So tell us, what do you mean about I didn't do a good job of promoting the creator? What did that look like, and how did you come to that realization?
Well, it's for me, I wasn't worried about promoting myself. There wasn't really an ego behind the product or the movie. I really, because it was a collaborative effort, and yes, it kind of sprang from my idea, and I kind of wrote, I'm the epicenter, but I wasn't the only one. So I took this point of view that it was a community behind the project, instead of like Mike Dougherty Presents, which would have put me at the forefront of everybody's mind every time they saw the movie. While I was still the guy going to conventions and going online and doing interviews, I was kind of always hiding behind the product, hiding behind the movie a little bit. Unlike Kevin Smith, who is one of my favorite directors, who does an amazing job of promoting himself side by side with anything that he does. That kind of came back to bite me in the ass a little bit, because when it came time to do something else, I hadn't built that staple community of my 1,000 core followers of me ready to move.
Nice. So then it sounds like if you spend that time developing your brand, the Michael Dougherty brand,
Correct.
Then it doesn't matter what the genre ends up being. They know you. They trust you. They like your stuff.
Absolutely. And let me be clear. It all depends on what you're doing. I mean, that model works really well if you're a musician, if you're an artist, if you're a filmmaker. It may not necessarily work well in business unless you're like a Sean Parker, who is really just a VC and a creator. But if you're trying to build products, the product needs to come first. If you're in the technology space, the product needs to stand out over the creator, but the creator needs to be believed in by the people who want to support it.
Nice. It's that artistic, it's like finding your tribe of people who resonate
Absolutely.
with your artistic voice.
Absolutely.
Wow. So what does, in the course of you've spoken a lot about crowdfunding from what I heard on Natasha's. Give us a little sample of where you've been able to share some of your experience, and what were some of the highlights or the fun things that you got to share about crowdfunding, and where did you get to tell other people about that?
I've got to speak everywhere, which for me is everywhere. I've spoken at South by Southwest about the film and the crowdfunding for that. I've spoken at various events ranging from like small little community things to really nice stages. And the reality is regardless of whether it's actually called crowdfunding, majority of the talking is about community building, which is the core of crowdfunding. Without a community, there is no crowd. I mean, unless you get that one thing that is lightning in a bottle, like the recipe for mashed potatoes or something.
Which I happen to make very good ones, by the way.
But yeah, it's going to be very, very hard to get something off the ground unless you're doing a really small dollar amount. Like, let's be honest, if you're doing $1,000 to $2,000, you should be able to hit that goal really, really easy with enough planning and communication. But if you're starting to reach beyond your goals, like if you're going 10, 20 and above, like you need to have a community of people that are going to be there to support you.
Wow. So if you could, and when was that first, I missed the date of when that first crowdfunding project that you had done. When was that?
That was in 2012.
2012. Okay.
And what happened was I put the Kickstarter campaign up and found that we were only getting about 10%. And Kickstarter doesn't allow you to alter or change. So you're kind of either stuck with the choice of either letting the campaign run its course or canceling the campaign. So what I decided to do was let it run its course. I talked to all the backers. Hello, Michael Bott wrote. I talked to all the backers and said, one of the biggest pains that we have is that nobody knows what the movie will look like. So would you be willing to transfer this project into a proof of concept? And we will use that funds to make the 5 to 7 minute little short that'll show what the movie is all about. And I realized that I got 80% of those people to come over, and then I had to work for the remaining 20% all over again. It wasn't an easy win. So it wasn't like everybody moved over on day one and I didn't have to do anything. It was 80% of those people moved over, but they kind of moved over shortly over a period of time, not everybody all at once. So I still had to work just as hard to get everything successful as I did for the $250,000 version.
So you're using this phrase, I had to work. For people that are maybe new to crowdfunding or have felt discouraged, when you say I had to work, what does that look like? What does I had to work mean? Like, what are the 3-4 things that make up having to work hard for that?
This is going to, you can see this everywhere. Crowdfunding is a full-time job. So number one, your social life gets to go bye-bye for 30 days. If you believe in the thing that you're creating, you're alive on this world for, I've been fortunate to hit 39 years. So 30 days out of 39 years isn't really a whole lot of time. It feels like it when you're in the midst of it, but 30 days to create the thing that's going to change the rest of your life, you can invest 2 to 3 hours a day for 30 days. I hear a lot of people going, yeah, but I have, this other commitment to this thing that really makes me happy. I'm like, great. Like, stop spending time on Netflix, stop spending time on TV.
On Blab.
The hour in the morning that you spend surfing your phone, spend creating and researching your plan. Start building your communities. Find out the news channels that are going to talk about it. I mean, I'm a big proponent for at least 30 to 60 days before you launch. You're doing a lot of work. You're building your campaign platform. So you have all your images, you have all of your content written, you know who you're going to market to, you know who your potential supporters are on day one. And you do all of this work so that on day one, you know where 30% of your goal is going to come from. And if you can't figure out where 30% of your goal is going to come from, you need to either reduce your goal or really, really take a look at your project.
Wow. So that sounds kind of harsh.
It's true.
I was just going to say that probably is probably not what a lot of people want to hear, right? They want to hear his magic dust. You know?
It is. It's called the magic dust of sweat equity. I mean, yeah, you could walk up to, like, think about it. You're essentially taking time out of people's day to ask them for money. So, you know, I could walk up to a friend and ask for $1 for Coke, but if I walk up to and ask for $100, there's going to have to be some, you know, reasonable amount of exchange between the two of us. Like, I'm going to have to prove why it's worth it. And then you're going to do the same thing to strangers. So you're going to take some time, and it's going to take some effort, and it's going to take a little bit of getting out of your comfort zone to do it.
So, Mike, let me ask you this question, because I know there are some people that are not comfortable with social media, period. Most people aren't, I will just say. A lot of people aren't. What about the creators who tend to be more, maybe more introverted, more like exhausted and taxed by people? What could you tell someone who is a creative genius but doesn't love the people?
Okay.
Tell someone.
Have you seen the movie The Goonies?
I'm probably one of the few people in the world that hasn't, but yeah, I probably.
Okay. So in The Goonies, there's 4 main characters, and they're pretty much your 4 archetypes. There's Mikey, who's the leader, Mouth, who is the loudmouth, Chunk, who is the kind of beat up friend, and Data, who is the guy that just nerdy friend that invents everything. But they're a team, and they don't really work without the other one. So if you're an introvert who's really good at creating things, find the person who won't shut up. Like your friend that you just go to at a party and just goes the whole time and talks to everybody, and
yes,
you look at and you're like, I'm exhausted just watching you. That's the person you need to partner with.
Yes. Like
if they're prolific online and they talk a lot, you know, and make sure that they're in line with your brand. Like if they're profanity laden and really kind of caustic and you're not, that might not be your best partner, but there's probably somebody out there like me with a big mouth that'll happily partner with you because you have a really good idea.
Love that. Love that. I think we don't hear that often enough. We don't find someone with a complementary skill set who aligns with your brand to cooperate with you in seeing whatever it is that you're trying to have birthed happen.
Yeah, there's a really great article, and I wish I could find it again, that every Walt needs its Roy. And what that means is every Walt Disney needs a Roy Disney. Walt was a great visionary, could very detail-focused and come up with a project, but, you know, few people know that when Snow White was being made, he nearly bankrupted the company.
I did not know that.
He was a great creator, but he was willing to take risks and burn bridges to get something made. So he had his brother Roy, who was a really quiet guy, preferred to be in the background, didn't like being seen, but was amazing with numbers and to figure out how to get stuff done. And I think every person that, you know, even your most outgoing person needs somebody like that to even support you, whether it's an assistant or a direct partner. It's just a matter of finding that person that kind of creates balance. So Sci-Fi Funk, I'm going to kind of interrupt. Sci-Fi Funk asked, are there other ways of getting that 30% to start if friends or close friends won't support? Yes and no. Your first 30% should really be your friends and family and core supporters. If you can't get to that 30% yet, spend some time building that community to figure out what it is. Don't be shy. If you have a Twitter following, start DMing people directly and asking questions about what you could do to improve your product and get them involved early. The earlier you can get people involved, like honestly, I started talking in 2008 for a movie that didn't come out in 2010. And I was talking about it every month. And if you asked me at a party or I was somewhere, it was the only thing I really talked about. And it probably annoyed the hell out of people, but honestly, there was not a single person that didn't know me, that didn't know what I was doing. So when it came time to pull the trigger on doing something, I had a core group of people who were willing to support it. So if your friends and close family members, you know, aren't willing to jump on board, see if they know people who are. Like, don't be shy. This is your project. And like, unfortunately, as you mentioned, it's kind of harsh, but you're the only one responsible for really making it come to life, because nobody but you kind of carries that weight.
That's great. And anyone who's on here also, Steve or Paul or Natasha, please feel free to hop into a seat to ask questions. This is your show. I mean, this is an industry that I'm not, this is your show. This is actually not my industry, but I am a firm believer that we can learn from anyone. And so I was fascinated as soon as I heard Mike say it's about community building. That I'm very interested in because of other reasons, but I really, you don't have a webcam. No problem. That's fine. But feel free to throw in some questions that you may have. Welcome. There we go.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome.
Very good, thank you. Nice to meet you, Dawn and Mike. Thank you very much for coming on. It's great to hear somebody that's been successful at crowdfunding.
Thank you.
How do you move people from being, I've got people that are interested in what I'm doing, but in terms of parting with money, that's a whole different stage.
Yeah, it is. And it's a different level of being comfort. So like what you're going to have to do is try to figure out who those people are that are really just, for lack of a better term, fair weather friends, that they're always going to give you the attaboy that you need, but are never going to put in $1. And then figure out who's going to be in the trenches with you, either investing money or investing sweat equity, because they may not necessarily be the person that has $50 that you need, but they may be willing to spend 5 hours a night on Twitter for you because that's something that they love to do. And you had asked, could you fake it? Could you put in the first 30% yourself? Absolutely.
Okay.
If you've got your first 30%, you know where it comes from. Like, let's break down the math real quick. Your campaign equals 4 weeks. So 4 weeks is broken into quantities that work out like this. Your first week should equal 30%. Your second and third week are going to be really, really slow. So it's 30, then it's 20, then it's 20. And then your last week will generally mirror whatever you did in your first week as long as you keep working. So if you know where your first 30 is coming from and you can get it in early, and then you can just spend the time building momentum, people always really want to get behind something. There's this thing called the green bar effect. I didn't create it. It's really great. I don't know who created it. But if you look at Indiegogo and Kickstarter, they have this growing green bar that is filling up as the total goes along. And sometimes people look at that over the actual number. And if they see that if you get to a certain period of time and that hasn't filled up to where they think it should be or where they feel comfortable, they may or may not contribute. So for example, I'm helping the awesome guys, Jesse, who is the creator of Frank and Zed, an all puppet horror movie. And they had ran into the same problem that I did. And what they did is they found that, they didn't have enough to do their full idea, but they had enough people to move over to do something smaller. So they moved over people small. It took them about a week and a half, and they finally caught up to where they were. And as of today, they actually just exceeded their goal and are still working towards, doubling some of their stretch goals. And they've got 14 days left. So it could just be a matter of A, knowing where your money's coming from ahead of time, and B, being realistic about what you need right now. Because you may not need, like I didn't need $250,000 in one chunk. When I thought about it, I have different phases of my project. So I have pre-production, production, post-production, and then distribution. And if I could break those things up into smaller chunks, I could use that to get smaller amounts of money, which are more attainable, and grow a community as it went along.
Okay.
What a great, so let me just reiterate. So you're saying take the whole project and maybe divide that up into fundable chunks that actually feel like there's movement. You can give then your community that sense of, we did this, and then move them to the next chunk.
And know that each chunk is going to grow. Like I've successfully, between Kickstarter and Indiegogo, raised about over $90,000 doing small chunk campaigns. Now, if you look at that, that's $90,000, whereas before I couldn't raise I couldn't even raise 50% of $250,000. So what you can do is start breaking it up into smaller chunks, and as you prove yourself, people will trust you more and more and more.
Can I just thank you so much? Can I come back to that first question again? Because this is the key thing for me: is it a numbers game? Is it just get your Twitter following out there so that you can say probably 1% of my Twitter following might be prepared to contribute? Or is sorry.
Go ahead. No, please continue.
Or is it a matter of sussing people out as you go along? I mean, somehow you've got to enthuse them, haven't you? A lot of people can say, yeah, that's a great project, but to actually contribute, they've got to really believe it, haven't they? They've really got to want to see it.
Yeah, they do. I mean, here's the thing. If you're unknown, if people don't know who you are, and you're still either a new entrepreneur or a new creative, you're going to have some time to build your name up a little bit, because they haven't seen anything you've done in the past. And while you may have spent 10 years getting to this one moment and hours in the shop making your thing to get it perfect, to them it's still brand new. So it's just a matter of perspective. As far as the magic number of what your Twitter followers should be, it's really more about how engaged you are. I have over 3,000 Twitter followers, but I'm going to be honest with you. I know that I can count on maybe 30% of those. But those are people that, since for the past 7 years, I stayed community involved in and engaged with, and I talk to them on different platforms like Instagram or Facebook or in person or at conventions. There are people that I only interact with on Twitter, but I know that I might be able to count on them for something, or just, keeping a running log of the people who I engage with. And gone is the days of the old Rolodex. Like, I'm old enough to remember the wheelie Rolodex with the little cards that you put notes in about people, but you almost have to do that nowadays. Like, Steve, you and I met here, so we're going to make a note that we talked about this, and we're going to talk about crowdfunding, and in a couple of weeks I might check in on you to see how you're doing. And that's one more engagement. And that replicated by 100 times starts to grow. Yeah.
Thank you. Excellent advice. I shall get off and let somebody else pose the questions, but thank you.
No, I appreciate your questions, Steve. I mean, these are the exact questions that other people, I'm sure you found yourself in. Other people are finding themselves in that exact same situation. Yeah. So appreciate your question.
I'll be listening.
Awesome. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Steve.
Michael, welcome.
Hello there. I met Steve earlier, who's just popped off, by the way. I'm an actor based in the UK. I just wanted to re-emphasize, it's just an observation, it's not a question, just to re-emphasize something that what Mike said about phasing a project. A good friend of mine, Simon Cox, is creating an insane project. He's getting towards the end of it now, called Kaleidoscope Man. It's a vast sci-fi Star Wars type movie, but it's entirely crowdfunded. But he's been funding it in phases, and the effect of that is he's built a tremendous community over time. Now, it's taken him a good deal of time to get there, but now, as he's coming to the back end stages of making his movie, he's got so much support. He's finding no trouble. The money seems to flow in quite quickly, and he's got an amazing support from a community of people who've seen the project grow over time before their very eyes. Yep. That's all I need to say. I shall get out again now.
No, go ahead. You're welcome to stay on, because these are the kinds of questions that are just perfect. I mean, to think about this, dividing a project into chunks and growing it, it's almost like there's momentum with each subsequent phase, because now you've got advocates telling other people, and as that grows, it's exponential. One of my questions for either of you is, how do you equip your advocates to share your story?
Go ahead, Michael.
How do you equip your advocates to share your story? I think it's setting an example. It's setting a momentum. I think it's a fair amount of leadership, enthusiasm. And when people see that, then they get on board and share with you. I think that would be, if I understand the question right, that would be the instinctive thing that, I'm not in the game. I've not done it. I've not been responsible for raising money myself. It was just an observation, having seen Simon. I've worked with him on the project, but I've not been responsible for funding or part of the Kickstarter campaign myself. But that would be an observation.
Yeah. So from what I hear you saying, that it's just really keeping the emotional energy up and and giving people that, hey, we're making progress and letting people know.
And sharing the ups and the downs. You know, really being in communication. He's throughout. I think he's every few weeks has been a video log of behind the scenes production, even after he's had a bad meeting with somebody when he's not raised money that he thought. You know, he's shared that, so everybody's felt involved and supportive along. He's not been you know, a fair weather fundraiser. He's shared the good bad times as well as the good, and I think that being open and honest about the process really gets people on side.
I everything that he said is absolutely perfect.
Cool.
I could not have said it better.
Listen, it's still quite late over here, so I'm going to get off now. But it's been a pleasure to meet you both.
Great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
I'll watch the rest of the lab later.
Thank you, Michael.
See you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, Mike, the whole idea of kind of giving people breadcrumbs, you know, of your process, I think that is, from someone not in the industry, I think that's tremendously fascinating, you know, to people, you know, like the little behind the scenes shots of the, you know, of how is this created? I think people are fascinated for people that are outside the industry.
Yeah.
You know, and those are the kinds of insights that I think would make you personalized. I mean, gives you part of your story, gives us, being not from the industry, gives us, wow, I can believe in that artist. Wow, this is interesting. Wow, they're bringing me into this process.
Yeah, and it's really, really interesting. And I've got to watch it firsthand. A friend of mine, Ellie, has a YouTube channel called Elko, and it's beauty and life hacks. And she hasn't crowdfunded anything, but she's primed that she spent the last 11 months, you know, building it, and she's ready to go. And what she did is she dedicated 3 days a week to releasing a video, and she stays on schedule. She's sharing content. She's putting stuff out there, and her community rallies behind her. Like, she, you know, made a short run of t-shirts, and she did really, really well at it. So it's not just one medium that this actually works for. It's multiple. It's just giving people reasons to care is really the core value of it. It's give them reasons to care.
I think that's often overlooked. I mean, I think there's a consistency aspect of it that you said. You know, there is that aspect of being able to consistently give people either those behind the scenes or valuable content, or keep them updated. So I wonder if these stats aren't skewed.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a little conversation going on. I would jump in on that one.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about the 6-month rule of other people being interested before they want the product. True or false? That's a great question. Sorry, I missed that question. Steve, you were like the king of good questions. So what do you think about that?
Well, it's really interesting because it's either the 6-month rule. It used to be this really fun rule of marketing. It's like the rule of 7 or 12. Like, people have to hear, see, touch, feel, or sense something a certain number of times before they buy it. Which is why Coca-Cola is everywhere. You can't go to a movie without seeing a commercial. You can't go to a movie theater without seeing something sponsored by. You know, you really kind of have to start planting the seed so that it's impulse buys are very, very rare these days, just because we're inundated with information. So yeah, you do have to take a lot of time and get people familiar with the product. As far as if these stats aren't skewed by the big crowdfunding platforms, chunks of updates can substitute as a product, but I have a feeling that Steve's going to explain a little bit better.
I'll just, because I'm sitting here, this is great stuff for me, and again, thank you. So, but when I think of a good one, then maybe you let me hop on. But so I've witnessed this. My project now is almost in its 6th year. We're almost completing the 6th year. I cannot maintain the same people through the journey. They've come, they've gone. You know, the ones that are ultra keen that you think might fund you, they're certainly well-wishers for sure. Every day I'm posting, and every day they would respond. But after, some of them have survived 2 years, but that's the max. You know, they never hang around for the length of the project. I think, can I say one comment and then I'll back off? I think what it is as an artist, the tough thing is you want to do your art. And as I've learned from another site, they say 50% art, 50% networking. That's a hard thing to swallow, isn't it, as an artist? Discuss.
It can be. What's that?
I said discuss as I
You said discuss, not disgust. I thought
I just saw you disappear. I was like, whoa. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's the very, very challenging thing, and that's where I say, find a partner, find somebody that can carry that load for you, even if it's just behind the scenes. Don't be inauthentic. Make sure it's your voice. Make sure people are hearing from you. But maybe there are pieces like I don't know what your project is. What's your project?
Can I be so bold to say, if you was
Please
to click on my name right now in Blab, there's a shortened URL. That's my sizzle reel.
Oh.
Just a few seconds of that would give you an idea. I could talk as you're doing that, if you like, for the people that are not clicking on that. It's a sci-fi. It's like our friend, he's gone now, Michael Bolt. It's a sci-fi set in 2064 AD. A man agrees to be cryogenically frozen and woken up in the future, but doesn't read the small print, and he's in a whole lot of trouble.
Wow, this looks really, really good. Okay, so let me ask you two questions. One, are you trying to do a feature-length film?
It's a feature-length film as a web series, and then when we get to the end of it, we'll edit it up together. Okay,
and two, since it sounds like you have a little bit of donor fatigue, is there a way to break that story up into, digestible chunks? So let's say you've gotten the first 30 minutes of the 90-minute film. Can you break it up into 5 minutes a piece that people could see online that you can release over a series of weeks? Because what's that?
I have been doing that, but because I'm the lone animator, I'm everything on this. I cannot produce them fast enough. So I'm currently working on episode 16, but we are 6 years in. But the pace is speeding up now. I can generally knock out one per month.
Okay. Well, what is we're going to fill some time. Dawn's answering the door. It's okay.
Sorry, I'm getting a washing machine delivered right now. So just keep going. Sorry.
As you do.
Like maybe what I would encourage you to do, and if you've done this already, please forgive me, is that maybe find people within your community of supporters over the last couple of years who could share some of the load, maybe take on some of the rendering, or maybe you could delegate some of the content to them and do some editing. Like I only think of that because, Joseph Gordon-Levitt has Hit Record. And what Hit Record is a collaborative site where people can come in to create different pieces of art. So maybe if you're having difficulty kind of taking all the burden by yourself, you've got the story, you know what it is, maybe disperse some of the load a little bit. That would actually be a really fun crowdfunding campaign. Like, you've gotten a history of people that have been watching this. You're being honest, you're the lone animator. It's time to bring somebody else on. What's needed?
It's a great suggestion. That's a challenge for me to let go of my baby. But I will put some thought into what could be let go of. Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
Awesome. Really valuable feedback. I think those are jewels of wisdom that a lot of us could use actually for projects that we've either given up on or lay fallow. And sometimes just having that, having someone else that can come along and kind of midwife that project with you is wise. Great advice, Mike. Thanks.
Yeah, look, and it's only advice because I've done it. Like I've got stuff that, lasted way too long on my plate that I've needed to delegate, and it's my baby, and you have the vision and you don't think anybody else could do it. And the reality is it's just you need to have somebody that you could communicate that vision, because ultimately you're still going to monitor its efforts. It's just going to be a little bit of breathing room for yourself is what you need.
Yes.
And you have a new subscriber on YouTube, by the way.
Bless you, man.
I'm
following you both all over the place now, so I'm hopping off again in case I don't want to hog it. Somebody else, but excellent.
You're welcome.
Muted. So, Mike, I know you're new to Blab, but I went ahead and I think I clicked on you and said made you co-host.
You did.
Yeah, so what that means, because I know you're new, so what that means is if I need to hop off, you now have co-host, you have the power. You can invite people into the seats, and then if I leave, you could actually continue on with the blab. So it's a nice feature. It was like passing the baton. A lot of people would start a show, and then a conversation would happen that you didn't want to stop, but you had to get moving, and so it's just a nice feature they just announced a couple of weeks ago. So
it says I was removed.
Did I take you off? There we go. So it's, yeah, except for the user error. Here we go. Make this person a co-host. Did you just go back on now?
Yep, I'm back on.
Okay, sorry.
No worries. So Natasha asked, how do you get the questions to post on the screen? It looks great. That's the one I want to know that.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is a test. So anybody who would like to pose a question, so actually she could have posed that question if in where it says send a message, you type the /Q space and then put your question. If you go ahead and do that, then it will show up along the left-hand side as questions. So go ahead and put that in, Natasha. If you type in /Q space and ask your question properly, anyone can do that. And what's nice is that I see it. I don't know if you guys see it not as the host. As the host, I see it come alongside my left-hand side. So you could even do that too, Mike, if you wanted to. Just type in /Q and then your question. And then once it is asked, so I'm waiting for someone to do a /Q.
Let's see.
There we go. So if someone just under where it says send a message, anyone can do it. Just to type /Q. What it does, the /Q puts it into a, it's like a shortcut code, and it helps there we go. How many people? This is cool. So what I'm doing is, I don't know, can you guys see along the side the questions or no?
I can.
It went, there we go. So now it says answer question. All I did was just clicked on answer question, and it just brought it over into one of the squares.
Excellent.
Isn't that nice?
So it looks like, if I'm reading this correctly, we have 8 live.
I'm jumping back on a little blab, little blab 101. So any other questions people have? I mean, this is really your show to ask your questions. You have someone who has done it and survived, crowdfunding and building a community. This is a skill that a lot of us need to do, whether you're an author or a painter or a filmmaker, musician. A lot of artists need to know, how do I build that following and how do I engage with them? And I do actually have a question, Mike.
Yes.
So you had mentioned Amanda Palmer as someone that you were watching and learning from. We got a good question again, Steve. I was going to ask, who else do you learn from? Who else do you watch and learn? Who does this well?
Let's see. Who does this well? There's a guy named John Trigonis. He actually works for Indiegogo. His Twitter handle is Trigonis, Trigonis. I watch him. I'm a huge Gary Vaynerchuk fan. I have been a supporter of Gary's since before Crush It came out, and I think I was started at Wine Library episode 20. And, got the fortune of interviewing Gary for Network Solutions for Crush It, and just been following him along. So, a lot of the stuff you hear me say is stuff that others have said, but it's also, it's true. It's kind of universal, regardless who says it. Filmmakers that I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan, because he is a big advocate for indie filmmakers, and I believe the same thing. Which is like, you're just selfishly encouraging artists to create the art that you want to see. Let's see. And then I think Creatives Links just did, Amanda Palmer, because she had the Art of Asking TED Talk as a result of her crowdfunding campaign, and that is in the chat. That was perfect. And it's Trigonis. It's just Trigonis. It's not John Trigonis.
Oh, okay.
Jason Brubaker, I know that name. I'm going to have to check my Google Foo real quick.
There is also, I actually had a writing coach that gave, and I don't know why I can't remember, it was a video, and it was the guy that did the sets for Pee-wee's Playhouse, and it was like a creative guy. Do you know who I'm talking about? And it was all about the creative process and birthing art. And dang it, I can't remember what that is. And maybe I'll post it later on in my feed.
I wasn't familiar with Jason Brubaker, but now I am. I mean, that's the nice thing, is like, this is what happens when you engage and get involved in the community. You are introducing me to people I've never heard of before. The same thing is, I'm doing the same thing for people like Trigonis. If you've never heard of John Trigonis, whose volume 2 of his crowdfunding for filmmakers is going to come out in 2016, that's a really great guy to follow. He's really passionate about crowdfunding, really passionate about film noir and comic books. And this is kind of how communities get grown. Like, I am an advocate for all the people that I am a fan of, just as you are the same. So we kind of share that.
That's awesome. And I think platforms like this are really, really nice to be able to introduce and to cross-pollinate, because we're learning, but we're learning some of the same, we're trying to accomplish some of the same things. How do I build a community? How do I grow? How do I serve a fan base? Do you know of any good indie filmmaker forums where they crowdfund? So Steve, again, the gifted child, is asking all the good questions.
Well, it helps when you raise your hand. So what I do is I go onto Facebook, and there are a lot of filmmaking forums. You want to check your local community. Like, I'm in Maryland, so the DC filmmaker community is really, really big. So we have a large community there. There is, just look for filmmakers and crowdfunding. And gone are the days that you have internet forums and chat rooms and the really, really hard ways to find how to connect with people. So just, start searching it out. Also go on Twitter and start searching hashtags for, Crowdfund Monday, which is really, really great. Or, the crowdfunding tips, like anything that you want to do, like filmmakers, just start riding the hashtag wave and figuring out where people are talking. That would be the best thing to do.
Yeah, I think also find people. One of the strategies I've used is find people who you admire, who are in the industry, just killing it, and follow their lists. Follow if they've put together a list, that if they've done the curation for you. That's another shortcut way to do it. Let's see. So we've answered this. Who do you watch to learn about building community and crowdfunding? And thank you. If anyone else has any other folks, please put them in the comments. Folks that you're learning from. And then I think Natasha asked another question, but I'm not seeing her question come up.
I don't think she did the /Q, but that's okay. I'm working with an author, and we want to set up a crowdfunding project to donate books to schools. Do you have any recommended platforms and strategy? Any welcome advice? Oh, she said she did. Let's see. Are you, real quick, Natasha, you could just dump the answer in the chat. Are you looking to raise money or an avenue to collect books? That would help answer the question. That's her response. Okay,
Not
so
sure.
The first thing I would do is figure out what your goal is. If your goal is to collect books, there's different platforms. There's not really a lot of strong platforms for that. It's just going to be primarily your website. But if you're looking to raise funds, so like there's a great nonprofit organization that's one of the charities I support religiously. So it's called Kids Need to Read, and you can find them and you can donate books directly to them via the mail. Or actually, you know what, Natasha, I'm going to put that in. It's Kids Need to Read. What I want you to do, Natasha, because you have my email me directly. I'll get you in touch with Denise Gary, who's the head of Kids Need to Read. And she always is looking for new authors to help promote and push. And you guys could do like a really nice exchange.
Nice. I think I've been involved in some, I'll say, cross-silo initiatives here within my own community of Riverside, California. And there are organizations, sometimes you can partner with people that solve one of your problems, whether it's the distribution of things or the gathering of things. There are organizations that are either through the county, through the city, through nonprofits within your own local city. So those are sometimes exploring ways that you wouldn't think. There are neighborhood neighborhood groups that do little library, lending libraries, those kinds of things. So there are lots of really, really creative people that want to get rid of books because they can't bear to throw one away. I was raised, you never throw away a book. So there might be people that are, Craigslist that are donating that would be happy to donate. So there are a lot of people
Absolutely.
that can bring pieces of the solution.
Creatives Link actually just pointed out something that is really, really interesting. So it's here's a good crowdfunding campaign. It's using a number of donors instead of dollars as a metric and not using a third-party platform. Slightly not true. It's using PayPal as a way to donate. So she set up her website to look very close to in a format of Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or GoFundMe, which is you have the description on the left, you have the options on the right, you click donate, and then you go to PayPal and do that. And that's absolutely viable. While Kickstarter and Indiegogo and Patreon are all great core platforms, that's right. You could still do this without having to use them as an anchor. You're still going to have to do a payment processing platform, whether it is PayPal or Square or any of those third-party processors that allow you to do online exchanges. But you could set something up even through Stripe.com, which is a credit card processor. So you don't have to use Kickstarter or Indiegogo for your projects. Like, here's the way that I would look at it: is if you are creating a product, go for like a product. I would qualify as a stage play, anything that's deliverable that you're giving away. Kickstarter and Indiegogo are your really, really big ones if you don't want to take the time to build it yourself. If you're an artist that's creating content frequently, like you're a DJ releasing weekly art mixes, or you're a podcast releasing episodes, or you're anything from a musician who wants to do song a day, Patreon would probably be your big avenue. I find GoFundMe to be a little bit confusing because a lot of people are using it for a lot of different things, from pay my medical bills to whatever, but there's also no sense of urgency when it comes to that. So like, it's kind of an ongoing campaign that'll take a period of time. Whereas Patreon is really about building your community and continuing to receive monthly revenue from that. That's like a really great way for an artist who has continuous art to come out. But if you have a project that has tight deadlines, like Indiegogo, Kickstarter, or even the way that let's see, what's her name again? Rebecca Loeb is doing it, is completely doable. So just think about what you're trying to achieve, and then there's always a way to crowdfund it.
That's great. So any other questions people have? Because I'm actually going to need to run because I've got a dishwasher that I probably need to chat with the install guy, who's been very patient and nice. But
hi, install guy.
Yeah. But hey, this is the beauty of live streaming, right? So
yeah.
Let me go ahead and wrap the show and turn off the recording. Please feel free to continue the conversation. And Mike, I love, and appreciate the content that you've brought. Everyone who's been able to join us and who is either going to catch this on the replay, this automatically can go up to YouTube, or
cool.
Used to. So it's evergreen content, which is fabulous. But this is good stuff. I mean, this is a blog post or 2 or 3 right here, right? I mean, a lot of the things that Mike has talked about. Here's just another tip to throw out into the community. If you want to bring value to Mike, if you believe what Wicked Java is doing, write up a blog post about what you learned from him today and post it on your outlets. I mean, that's just a great way to share the love. Just say.
And you know what? If you find this type of Q&A viable and you think that we should do like a daily or weekly thing, like let's do it. Like, get some communication going on there and start talking about different things.
Love it. Yeah. So definitely reach out to Mike on Twitter. He's at Wicked Java. Please, if you're not connected to him, follow his posts. And then also Young Hollywood Blast, Natasha Young, phenomenal. The reason we were even connected.
Thank you, Natasha.
So definitely follow. Yeah. Hey, Natasha. And she's been serving this indie entertainment community for over 3 years with bringing interviews like Mike, bringing content. She's from the industry, so she knows what the heck she's doing. So please follow her. So,
and thank you to everybody in the UK and overseas who are anywhere from 3 to 5 hours ahead of us right now, taking time to watch this. Really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah.